Welcome to the Tom Matt Show. You are walking through the front door of the retirement zone. And now, your host, Tom Matt.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Tom Matt Show. Thank you so much for joining us, either on the podcast, on the radio broadcast, on the video stream, on whatever, the excerpts. However you're doing it, through the TikTok, through the Instagram, through the Facebook, through all of it. You know, we're on everything. Thank you. Appreciate that. And you know, we have the blue buttons on the website where you can go to your favorite podcast carrier. I know a lot of people are into Spotify, and every time I talk to somebody, are you on Spotify? Yeah, we've been on Spotify for a long, long time. So if that's your jam, go look us up because we're there. We're there for sure. Last week, Devian Johnson was here. He was a former student at Michigan State University who I've known for quite some time. And he is a future star, call that one Future Stars. Gen Z guy who is very in touch with like normalcy. I'm just going to leave it at that because there's a lot of Gen Z people who have really odd opinions and vibes on work and life and just all of it. And so he comes at it with a really interesting perspective. It's another one of those journey into higher ed, sort of, kind of, because he kind of is in and out of higher ed, but he's actually doing a really good job working for the Board of Water and Light in Lansing, Michigan. All right. Today, my guest is Earl Christensen, the founder and lead investigator of ChristenServ, a private investigation firm dedicated to delivering thorough and reliable, you would like that, thorough and reliable, discreet services to clients across multiple sectors. Holds a BA in law enforcement, spent 13 years as a police officer, so he's experienced with this kind of stuff. He'll get it done. I guarantee you he'll get it done. It might take a little while, but you know what? These kind of things, that's what we'll talk about with Earl. You got to be patient with this kind of stuff because if you're dealing with situations where you're looking for a private investigator, obviously there's some underhanded stuff possibly going on here. During his law enforcement career, Earl developed a deep expertise in surveillance, interviewing, case management, and problem solving under pressure. After leaving the police force, Earl launched ChristenServ to provide clients with high quality investigative support grounded in professionalism and integrity. You got to get bang for your buck, everybody. And he's traveling all over the place, figuring out stuff, we'll talk about all these cases that he deals with because it's very, very interesting. His services include standard surveillance, locating individuals, conducting interviews, as well as paper service, consultations, and notary. So he does it all. I want to welcome to the radio program my new best friend, Earl Christensen. Earl, thank you so much for taking the time, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Exciting times. And looking forward to getting into it and letting your listeners know exactly kind of what the profession's all about and why they could probably benefit it at some point in their lives.
Absolutely. Okay. So the first segment, the listeners know, it's our 15th season on this bad boy. Listeners are used to this is your life kind of first segment. We got about 7 minutes to go here in this first segment. So we turn it loose to you and let you talk about your family, children, if you want, parents, education, the whole backstory. Because with your stuff, your backstory is big. I mean, I just shared some of it, but that's just a very small snapshot. Go right ahead, share all of that information. Why do people want to find you and talk about your life?
What I've seen in this profession is most people, what they want is, in today's age in law enforcement, we've made so many rules for and this is strictly just how I feel about law enforcement with my professional background, is that we made so many rules for essentially bad guys not to go to jail anymore. And given these loopholes and public defender funds and everything like that. And that's just a small piece of my world. So that was one of the big motivators to start my private investigating agency. And what I see for a lot of people is some of the traditional systems, especially on the law enforcement side, have let them down. And that's where my company, we care a little bit more in terms of not just providing the service, but making sure somebody understands the process in which it's going to be, because it is lengthy and not a lot of people understand that. And that's been my world for most of my adult life, my educational background, and that's something I'm well versed in. So even the side of things as far as the PI stuff, like surveillance and everything, that's all great. But what people don't understand is that consultation part of it is worth its weight in gold. So I'm a big believer in you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know it, I'm one of those resources people can reach out to and kind of walk you through the process.
Talk about your family a little bit, Earl, would you please?
So got 5 kids. So running the same, I'm a normal everyday guy, wife, things like that. They're super supportive. One of the big things with this company and the line of work, even if in traditional law enforcement, is you need that support. And I have it. But I will say transitioning out of law enforcement to this has allowed me more time to be at home, spend time with the family. I have one of my younger sons. It got to the point where I was showing up just for functions in uniform and stuff like that. And he was calling me his cop dad. I'm like, well, no, I'm your normal dad, not just your cop dad. So it's been definitely a blessing to transition over like I have and still use that skill set and to provide some sort of service to the community that I do genuinely care about.
Awesome. Great answer. And I had no idea that you had so many children. That's fantastic. And talking about a little bit of the transition, before we get into the private investigator, the whole ball of wax with this thing, I want to jump on, just because we've got a few minutes to go in this segment, about the entrepreneurial jump in your head that you made from traditional law enforcement to being an entrepreneur, because that's a big jump. And just, I like to share with people, because you're a successful guy, what is it that made you successful? Was it the prior experiences? What do you think has made your company so successful?
I think it goes along with an individual specifically. So in my instance, I believe that why I've become so successful in this is that I'm just self-motivated. I always have, and a good police officer is self-motivated. And that's obviously been my former life, to where in my law enforcement capacity, I mean, after 4 years of working the road as a road officer, I was lucky enough to test and be promoted to a command officer. And that was only possible because I was self-motivated and put myself in experiences that I wasn't afraid to fail. So, and that's what I carried over into the entrepreneurial part of it. Was it's a risk. And I knew that going in, but it was a risk worth taking, especially for me personally as an individual, the mental health of it all too, as far as law enforcement. But the biggest thing is, when you're fighting at the front of your patrol car with a guy that's carrying close to a half a pound of meth, and he got caught 3 weeks prior for the same offense and he's out of jail, it kind of tips your head and says, hey, what are we doing? So I took my self-motivated, thinking and strategy and applied it to something that I could see the direction it was going, and be that, I guess, that final decision, like, how do I want to see this company go rather than work for somebody else? So that's what's been my main motivation. That's
a great answer. Another great answer. I mean, that's the whole thing with this, everybody. You got to have the desire. And when you start to, as Earl was saying, Earl Christensen's our guest today, everybody, with the private investigator is the title of today's episode. When you're in that situation and you're in, like, for me, everybody knows about my higher ed and being in with the big government agencies. I mean, change is hard. I mean, it's slow, if it even happens, period. And so having the ability to call your own shots is really, really wonderful. Let me reset this thing, Earl. I'm going to take it through the break here. We got a minute to go. Earl Christensen is the founder and lead investigator of ChristenServ, private investigation firm dedicated to delivering thorough, reliable, and discreet services for you. Now, you may wonder, everybody, throughout this episode, well, with the internet, why in the heck would I need a private investigator? Personally, I would think, not really knowing, but I would assume that the internet makes it harder because people can hide, and then they think they can go find them by doing a Google search or whatever, and you're 15 miles behind wherever, because some of these people, and Earl will be able to tell us, some of them are slippery folks, and they know what they're doing, and they do this stuff on purpose, and they're just not really good people sometimes. But when you're under stress with a relationship, or if you're under stress for a business, or somebody's done you wrong, time to get yourself right. And what you want to do is you want to get a hold of Earl Christensen, the private investigator. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Thank you again to Brock Fletcher, real estate agent at the selling team with Keller Williams Realty. For more information on services provided by Brock, please call his personal cell phone at 517-303-3262 or by emailing Brock at kwsellingteam.com.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of Tom Matt Show. Thank you, Sandy, for bringing us back, and Mitch Anderson and Vanessa for everything you do to bring our show to life. Takes a team of people to pull this all together. I'm just a guy who finds guests and talks and gets cool people on the show, and the rest of it is all everybody else doing stuff. The reason we can do this is because of Brock Fletcher at the selling team of Keller Williams Realty. And you know that we're loyal to Brock because he's helped us with Big House Holt, where we sold that Big House, our forever home. And then he helped us with Mike Dedman, helped us find Little House Lansing, where we live now, where I'm recording this episode right now. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. And it's all because of Brock. I mean, his phone numbers are 517-853-6408. 517-853-6408 that's the office number. This is the cell phone number to Brock's pocket. This is the key one. 517-303-3262. 517-303-3262. You can go online to kwsellingteam.com and go there. You can go to our website, tommattshow.com, and away you go with all of that. That'll be really great. And just click on through. Away you go. Brock starts marketing way before he gets your listing. That's the whole point. He invests in people like myself and our show for years now. And the Reality Real Estate is full of good information for you on our website, tommattshow.com. Go there and look at the topics on the Reality Real Estate. We break it down so that you can find things. Reality Real Estate is super beneficial for any question, downsizing, upsizing, doing whatever like we did. You know, we were downsizing, but maybe you're upsizing. Maybe you're like my guest today, Earl Christensen. He's got 5 kids and he needs a bigger house. You know, life changes happen. They happen all the time, everybody. You got to have somebody who you trust for your real estate happenings, and that is our guy. And the whole team of the selling team of Keller Williams Realty and Brock Fletcher. Love you, Brock. You're the best. The Private Investigator is today's episode title, everybody. Never done a show like this, never. Of the thousands of episodes we've done over 15 years. What, you know, it's the way this radio thing works, everybody. It's like, let's have some fun with this. Let's answer some questions on, again, the high altitude stuff. We do a quick recap for our guest today, Earl Christensen. Earl launched ChristenServ to provide clients with high-quality investigative support grounded in professionalism and integrity. He's retired law enforcement, so he knows what he's doing. And we'll get you all his phone numbers and all that kind of stuff coming up here. Earl, you said something interesting before we went to break. Traditional law enforcement has let us down. And we're not trying to disparage anyone with this. We're just being honest. But as a professional who was in law enforcement, I see it on the news all the time. That's got to be hard. That's got to be really hard for you guys.
And when I say that, I hate to say it as a broad statement because it's not. When I say when law enforcement has let majority of the people down, and most of the people that I come into contact with say it was a negative experience. And I get it. You know, your law enforcement are seeing people at their worst. But I will say that some of the stuff that we started to see as far as law enforcement, when I eventually transitioned out, was not law enforcement matters, but we were there, we were available, we would go and try. But that wasn't our skill set. It really wasn't. Now, when stuff really hit the fan, as far as, you know, whether it's a major motor vehicle accident with fatalities or mass shooting, stuff like that, we showed up and we would get the job done. No questions asked. It's the other stuff where it's, you know, hey, I'm in a bad situation and I'm not 100% sure what to do, or a mental health crisis. And again, those weren't law enforcement skill set. And I know when I started to transition out of my law enforcement days, we were beginning to get those. But the way I personally felt was, hey, these are not law enforcement matters. We need a different system in place. And me and my personality, I was not fit to be in that system that it was becoming. So that's ultimately a change as far as why I exited law enforcement at the time that I did.
That's a good answer. Again, find the niche. I mean, if you're looking for something out there to fix a problem, everybody, find the niche and go ahead and use your skill set to fulfill that niche or whatever the need is. So, okay, so let's talk about the need. Why would someone need to hire you? I've got questions here, but I want to let you go ahead and have the broad scope here. First off, the private investigator. How busy are you, and why do people need you?
So I stay pretty busy, but and that's kind of only a little bit self-inflicted on kind of my part, is because I offer so many different services, whether it's consulting, doing traditional, what people would see as PI, following people around, doing surveillance, stuff like that. But I also have a mobile notary part of my business that I do. And I specifically target, because I have the connections in correctional facilities where I can go and help inmates out and families out that need to get stuff notarized for a loved one that might not be coming back out and being part of society anytime soon. So I keep myself busy on that. And then just yesterday, I offer the paper service part of my services too. Had a client call up last second. Sounds like the court system kind of bobbled her paperwork as far as getting a motion filed through. It was something simple. I believe it was a divorce hearing. But called up, she was in a pinch, and within same day, because I do offer same day service, dropped what I was doing, provided that service to her, got everything set. And then within, I think, an 8-hour time period from the time she contacted me, I had those papers served and everything was filed at the court. So it's self-inflicted why I'm busy because of those services, but they're in definitely high demand, especially where I operate, which is the Clinton, Ingham, and Eaton areas.
Okay, that's mid-Michigan for those of us who are out there on the podcast here. Why do people need you? I mean, why? What's the why? For instance,
we take an instance like yesterday, not anything super dramatic or anything, just a standard paper service. But law enforcement these days, when I say kind of letting us down, like they're underfunded, meaning before a lot of agencies had designated court officers. When these papers were filed with the court, their whole job was to go out and serve papers, because that's part of the law enforcement. They're allowed to do that. But with budget cuts and asking more for less, there's this particular agency that filed the paperwork didn't have those resources. And that's one of the things where, how are you supposed to get anything like that done if no one's out there to provide that services? And that's where I come in. So that's just an easy example, just because it's fresh. But I've also had clients want, surveillance conducted at, major sporting arenas or shows and things like that. And because of how I carry myself and the contacts that I've made in my career, give me that ability to provide that service. So I would say, if you're looking for something that could potentially turn into a law enforcement matter, but we're not quite sure yet, that's where I come in, because law enforcement's not going to look at it until it's a law enforcement matter.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's where I kind of bridge that gap.
Okay, so let's leave it there. We'll come back to bridging more gaps, because there's a lot more that goes into. These are just the first couple that we talk about. The private investigator, resetting this whole thing, everybody. Earl Christensen is my guest today. He's a former law enforcement who has his own business now, Christensen Services, and he's just doing a great job. I mean, he's getting things done for people, and he's a reasonable price guy, and he's very, very smart. So it's like, this is the place you want to go. He will get the job done for you. Private Investigator with Earl Christensen. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Thank you again to Brock Fletcher, real estate agent at the selling team with Keller Williams Realty. For more information on services provided by Brock, please call his personal cell phone at 517-303-3262 or by emailing Brock at kwsellingteam.com. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Tom Matt Show. Thank you so much for joining us. The Private Investigator is the title of today's episode with Earl Christensen. Without the help of Brock Fletcher and the selling team, we can't do shows like this for you. So I really want to help and emphasize that Brock Fletcher's the guy. You need to give him a call at 517-303-3262. He's helped us tremendously. And with his help, we can put a guy like Earl Christensen on the air so that you can find Earl. Maybe he's going to need to help you with personal matters, professional matters, legal matters. That's what the Private Investigator is all about. I want to do a testimonial for Brock, and the selling team of Mike Deadman and everybody else that's over there. You guys are just amazing. Just amazing. Stacy, you're awesome. You provide the very, very best service, and then capital, big, bold type, very best service. And I've never had an agent like you work so hard to get the home of our dreams. Thanks so much. Lorelei from Portland, Michigan. I love it. Very best service. That's what you want when you want to go into get your real estate taken care of. You want to get educated. You can go to our website and check out the reality of real estate. There's so many different topics there you can cover. Please go for it. And get your questions answered. And then if you have more, you can send us a note, tommattshow.com. But remember, Brock's number, always the 517-303-3262. And lastly, I want to say hello to Joan Wright of Williamston. She's a loyal fan. She listens to us on WKAR every Sunday, and I appreciate that. And she's a really good customer of Brock's, and so I want to make sure that I send her a note every episode if I can remember. I try. I do my best. Earl Christensen's with us today, the private investigator. All right, I got a little thing pulled up here, and I'm just gonna riff on some questions here from my man here because he'll know this stuff. But what is a private investigator? And here it's just talking about people that specialize in whatever they're going to specialize. So let's start right there, Earl. In Michigan, in this Tri-County area that you're working in, what is a private investigator?
A private investigator is someone that a private citizen or even businesses, things like that, can reach out to kind of bridge the gaps in some of the stuff that they may have questions, whether it might be a civil litigation, criminal offense, FOC. When I say FOC, like friend of court type stuff. So we're available for pretty much anybody that needs those type of services. And what we do as a private investigator is provide those services as long as they fall within what we can do lawfully. So anything that we do and provide can't be used to stalk, harass, intimidate, anything like that. But if it's something where we're bridging the gap of maybe an investigation already started for law enforcement or something through the courts have already established, but now you need to show there's been some sort of violation, that's what we do.
There you go. I mean, that's what is a private investigator. He just answers the question. All right. So the first one that's up here, I'm just going to throw to you. Earl Christensen's our guest today, everybody, the private investigator. I find this topic very fascinating because I really don't know. And that's the thing about me learning from my guests. It's like Tom's own tutoring service because I really don't know much about this business whatsoever. And so it's like, but opportunity came along, met Earl. It's like, hey, you know what? We might be able to do some radio here, and here we go. All right. The first question is, first point on this search that I did, this AI search, was number one was business background checks. Okay. So business background checks. Do you do a lot of that?
We do some, I will say. So without getting into detail about any of my clients, because everything that PIs do are confidential, and no information is shared about who has retained me and my services. Unless it goes to court, then obviously the cat's out of the bag, and then we got to testify, and hey, no big deal. But we have done several instances where we had a client who an individual had opened and closed multiple businesses, and they were registered, but then you started seeing, okay, well, this business was registered in Michigan. Now it's in Florida. Now it's in Wyoming. But all their operating was out of Michigan. So if you look at that and knowing what I know, well, there's different tax liabilities in different states. And the only reason to then operate a business out of a different state is for a tax break, which is tax evasion. So when that stuff comes up that eventually gets out of my hands, too big for me, that's when I say, hey, this is where we're at. This is where it should be going next. And ultimately that one went to the AG's office. So
you're actually like a confidential guide because you're licensed. You have all of the appropriate bonding that you need to have. I mean, you're the guy with this kind of stuff. So you're like the middleman sometimes with this stuff where you can get them set up and ready to go. And great, there you go. You check on people, you see what they're doing, you see if they're legit, and away we go. Next one is, and I'm sure you get a lot of this stuff. Number two is the number two question: aiding in child custody cases. I'll bet you get a lot of that kind of stuff. That's got to get ugly.
Yeah. We do. And I will say some of the stuff we kind of have to, for lack of better terms, kind of get through the giggly weeds on some of it. You got to read through some of the BS. So what matters to me in those situations is not anything. And I'm very upfront. I'm brutally honest when it comes to this stuff, especially with my clients, even if they don't like to hear it. because I believe that's the service they're paying for, is it's one thing to feel a certain way, but it's about the letter of the law and what's written. So that's why if I investigate anything like that or follow up to see violations through child custody, it's based on the letter of the law, not how you feel about a certain situation. So that's the biggest thing I've encountered is getting through that hurdle is, yeah, you might feel a certain way about it, but it doesn't say that that's, necessarily the agreement. So we get through it though.
Just from this point here, I want to share this with you, everybody. Hiring a private investigator, a PI, like Earl, ChristenServ, can play a pivotal role in achieving the goal that you're trying to achieve with your child custody. A PI can help gather crucial evidence and information. They can also facilitate a fair and just outcome for all parties involved. Is that a good statement, Earl? Accurate?
That's definitely on point. I will say we try not to get too involved, at least me, just with all the services that I offer. I focus on finding the violations, reporting it within an incident report and through photo, video, things like that, and then provide it. And then because as a PI, my job is not to supersede any court or really any PI. But if they have all the information, I believe the courts then can make a reasonable, educated decision on how they're going to act moving forward.
You seem like you've done this before. See, this guy he's done the question and answer before. You can tell he's a pro because it's like I'm interviewing another talk show host. It's like he just gets to the end of his answer, boom, done. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, next one that they have here, Earl, and I got not a lot of time here. We may not finish this one, but it's spotting identity theft risks. What exactly does that mean? If you can't finish, then we'll come back and we'll finish this thread. But what does that mean? Spotting identity theft risks. I don't know what that means.
So we've actually handled a few cases like that, and I'll do the short or the long of it. But essentially, that falls more on our consulting part of it. We happen to have a client who was kind of in the area. It was some investment stuff. So the big picture that I'm good at is looking, okay, what are you trying to achieve? Let's not talk about your feelings, because your feelings are one thing and what we're trying to achieve are another. And that's kind of where the consultation comes in, where I didn't play a hand in tracking anybody down, doing any interviews, anything like that, but just kind of kept this individual on task for what she wanted to achieve and how to achieve that, because emotions were getting in the way. So that's where it comes into you don't know what you don't know. So that's where I provide that education, especially the identity theft right now is huge.
So huge. And it's a problem that seems to get worse and worse all the time. Let me reset this thing. We're going to go to break here. Private Investigator is the name of today's episode, everybody. Earl Christensen's with me. Earl is a licensed private investigator with a law enforcement background, very lengthy law enforcement background. I want to make sure that I'm clear on that. What we got to do here is get the answers to the problems and then solve it and move on. That's what Earl can do. He can help facilitate situations so you can get past it, be done with it. That's it. We're not looking for retribution. We're not looking for trouble. We just want to solve the issue, get whatever you got coming to you, and be done with it. Again, the private investigator, Earl Christensen's my guest. This is The Tom Matt Show.
This segment of The Tom Matt Show is brought to you in part by The Source of Light and Power by band leader Archibald and broadcaster Mitch Anderson. Hear the sound that is endorsed by Odyssey headphones, linear tube audio, RME converters, and Peluso microphones at sourceoflightandpower.bandcamp.com.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Tom Matt Show. Thank you for listening, watching, whatever you're doing. Appreciate the time. Appreciate your energy. Wish me luck on these knees. They're actually going pretty well. And I have to say that I love this, all of the care I've got at Sparrow Hospital with my two new bionic knees. It's been an interesting story, and we'll be talking about that a lot here coming down the road. But yeah, it's been interesting. Earl Christensen's with me today, everybody. The private investigator is what we're calling this one. Private investigation. You wonder if you need to have this kind of stuff, and then you're thinking, oh, I don't really need that, But these professionals, that's why I always hire professionals. Hire professionals. They know what they're doing. If you're going to get something you're just going to be frustrated if you try to do the search yourself and you can't find it. you're going to run into problems with anything. I don't care if it's plumbing, if it's carpentry or whatever. Hire a pro. Here's Tom's advice for the day. Hire a pro. They know what they're doing. All right. So Earl, people want to hire the pro. How would you like them to connect with you? Go ahead. Share all that. Please take your time.
Absolutely. So we have a couple of different ways to get in contact with us. One, you can reach us through our website. We do have an online portal there to where you can submit questions. It goes right to me, and then eventually, we can have a phone conversation. But anyways, it starts with visiting our website so you can kind of see our pricing, the services, things like that. And that's ChristenServ.com, ChristenServ.com. We also have an email where you can email your inquiries, and I usually respond within the hour. And that's at hello@ChristenServ.com. It's pretty standard, pretty simple, easy to remember. hello@ChristenServ, no E at the end of that.com. And then lastly, my cell. If you're one where you want to Google ChristenServ, we do have the Google page too, our business page, which has the number listed. Our number is 810-705-0734. Again, that number is 810-705-0734. And we operate primarily out of Clinton, Ingham, and Eaton. Now, depending on the situations, we do go out of our area. And that's something that we can definitely talk about if anybody's interested in contacting me for any of their PI, consultation, paper service, or notary needs.
All one shop, 810-705-0734. Reach out and get some help. Here's another question for you here, my man. I would, being a married guy for 25 years now, I would never have any idea that you would use a private investigator for this. But the number 4 thing that came up on this search was dating background checks. Now, maybe you don't do this. I don't know. Do you get requests for this kind of stuff occasionally?
I have had those requests.
How odd.
And that, yeah, they're definitely interesting because a lot of what I've seen lately, and probably, some of your listeners are familiar with, is the dating is different than what I was used to. Now, granted, I'm 36, so I'm not too, far out of touch with things, but a lot of it is done online. And so a lot of people are, posing as somebody else, different name, this and that. And that's one of those really hard things to do, I will say, in the PI world, when you have these online profiles and these phishing schemes and everything like that. Those are some of the most difficult. Now, for what my services offer, that is something that's a little bit beyond us, because you need somebody that can track IP address, and where does that IP address come back to? And, that's more of a cybersecurity thing. But we do and have had, and I will say this, very limited, where we have shown up to a location prior to a female going there, scoped out the place first, and kind of confirmed everything that was online. In this situation, that wasn't the case. It was a totally different person, or maybe the person didn't even show up. I didn't really stick around to find out exactly what it was, but the person in the picture was not where they were supposed to meet. So ultimately, that dating encounter never happened. So it's limited, but we have done it.
I have somehow become, on my YouTube algorithm and all the other algorithms, kind of a consumer, not that I was trying to, of this dating stuff and these relationship things. And we talk about this stuff on the show quite a bit, so maybe that's why. But it's crazy out there. I mean, it's just like, you just don't know what, and being an older guy, it's like, for real? And it's true, this stuff is happening. All right, another one, employee background checks. Now, with the advent of AI and embellishment of people's work records, school records, now this is something I'll bet you get a lot of requests for, or I would be surprised if you don't, is what's your feeling on that, on employee background checks?
Well, and that's one of the things where we do it. We don't do a lot of it because what we see predominantly is, like, if there is maybe a little bit of a discrepancy, and then we're asked to look into a small part of the background and never really do the whole part. But and the only reason I say that is because a lot of these employers have potential new hires sign these releases and give the authority to, other companies release information that they wouldn't already be allowed to do. So we've had that before, but what we end up doing on our end is some places, depending on what kind of background that they're going through, is address verification, go and talk to neighbors, things like that, kind of figure out their character. But we've only seen that because they might be going into a facility where they handle sensitive materials or HIPAA violation type stuff. And that's where we come in. But we only play that small part. But I think it's a good thing considering all the personal information that's out there. And especially in today's age where it's bought and sold, like used cars. So I think it's beneficial.
Well, here's the thing that I find that possibly beneficial is it's a cost savings in the long run. I know for a fact that working at Michigan State University, being retired from the university, I know what goes into hiring people. It's expensive. I mean, these background checks that they do are expensive. So maybe you're not a firm like a Michigan State who has, giant deep pockets, but you want to try to save yourself some money and some time. You got to, and the way people are getting poached out there nowadays, everybody with jobs, you're better off spending a little bit of money with somebody like Earl to do a little bit of investigation for you for not a huge fee.
We're not expensive in that regard either, as far as that goes, to do a complete employment background on somebody. And so it's very cost effective. I don't plan to get rich doing this job. I didn't plan to get rich being a law enforcement officer. I just want to provide a service and, put new shoes on my kids. So that's my motive.
Have a comfortable life. Yeah, no doubt about it. So that's something to keep in mind. And just as a ballpark, we won't hold you to this, Earl, because I don't like to name, you name numbers out there and people go, well, Earl said it's going to be $5,000. I mean, just on a ballpark employee background check that you could do these things pretty quickly. What are we talking cost wise ballpark?
Typically, so there's two different pricing options that most PI companies use, whether they look at the job itself and then they give you a flat rate, or they take a retainer and then charge you hourly on the back end. I kind of do a hybrid of both. I do have a retainer for my services. So we land, and that depends on the job. For something like a standard background, knowing how much drive time and, investigative work that goes into it, you're probably looking at between $500 and $750 for a quick standard background. And that gets an investigative report at the end, all my findings, interviews, stuff like that. So it's a complete picture by the time I'm done. And a lot of places don't offer that.
Very good answer. Excellent. Thank you. Earl Christensen's our guest today, everybody, the private investigator. Okay. We're definitely coming up on break here, but I'm going to throw this question out there so you can think about this and the listeners can kind of come back because we'll be going to the fifth segment. But aiding in welfare investigations are critical in ensuring the well-being and safety of vulnerable individuals. And that's why I want to spend some time with this, particularly important to children, elderly, or those in special needs. That's got to be a soft spot for you, isn't it, Earl, when you're helping kids and parents and elderly?
Yeah, and that's definitely part of our services too that we offer. I would say most of that falls to a law enforcement, especially if it comes to like the removal or anything like that. But the initial steps that I've been involved in have always been, okay, we think something's going on. Let's confirm it. Yep, we've confirmed it. Let's get law enforcement involved. And that's where my report, even though I might be the first stop, opens that door and paints the picture as far as what's going on. I want to say just maybe 3 weeks ago, we just went through one where both parents were ultimately arrested for crimes against children.
And that's just an awful thing. And I have a question that I'm going to hit Earl with when we come back from break here, because it's like this confirming the confirmation part of it is part of my question. And I'll save this for when we come back, everybody. But it's a really important question about the confirmation process of all of this, because there could be other extenuating circumstances that are coming on. And I'll bring that up here when we come back from break. Again, let me reset. The Private Investigator, been a really fun show. I knew this was going to be interesting, and we're barely touching the surface here. Earl will definitely be back for more. Yeah. Earl Christensen is our guest today. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Thank you again to Brock Fletcher, real estate agent at the selling team with Keller Williams Realty. For more information on services provided by Brock, please call his personal cell phone at 517-303-3262 or by emailing Brock at kwsellingteam.com. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Thank you so much for joining us this week, everybody. It's the Tom Matt Show. If you missed any portion of the radio program, the podcast, whatever you want to, however you label this content, we have the website, tommattshow.com. It's one-stop shopping. You just go there, click the blue buttons. If you're looking just to listen, if you want to look at videos, you can go there. My TikTok's there. All of our social media is there. All of the tiles for all of the topics of the radio program over the last 15 years are there. And, you know, they've changed and moved and morphed. But that's the whole point about the radio program, everybody. TomMattShow.com is your one-stop shopping. And it's like we're constantly looking for good story. And that's where I found Earl Christensen today, the private investigator. It's fascinating topic. Earl, before we go back, I want to finish that question I have for you on confirmation stuff. Let's do your contact info one more time. You guys, listen, this is a man who you can get a really good price with, who can help you with some issues and make it discreet. Okay? Just keep that in mind. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just offering some suggestions because you just never know anymore. But go ahead, Earl, please share your contact info one more time.
I believe the first stop anybody should go to is at least website. We do have a web presence. Go to ChristenServ.com. You can kind of check out all of our services, how, we came to be this company, everything like that. We got a little bit of a background on there. It's a pretty decent read. In contact via our email, it's hello@ChristenServ.com. And there's no E at the end of that. I'll read it off. hello@ChristenServ, ChristenServ.com. And then contact us by phone. We are listed on a Google business page, and that number is 810-705-0734. We got some pretty good reviews out there. Haven't had a bad one yet, but, we're out there, so people can definitely find us.
Well, that's the thing. And it's like your integrity, and this is the guys with law enforcement backgrounds, their integrity is going to be solid. And you want to find these solid people who have years and years, got 14 years of law enforcement, and his business is it's thriving. Now, the question that I started was in regards to aiding in welfare investigation critical to ensuring well-being, safety of vulnerable individuals. And Earl, a quick answer was, well, let's confirm this. My question to Earl is, and why it's such a valid point for the listeners, when you have a confirmation, you may be protecting yourself liability-wise. And in today's society, all you got to do is make an accusation to somebody and you got a lawsuit. Okay. Somebody's going to sue you. And so you're better off, in my opinion, finding professional. You want a painter, you want a private investigator, you want a plumber. I'm not calling a private investigator to come fix my plumbing. That's for sure. You want to find somebody that knows what they're doing. What do you think, Earl? Is that a solid way of thinking about that? The liability that can go in with confirmation?
Absolutely. And everybody knows everybody's looking for a payout. That's just the way the world is, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, that's so if one of the big things when somebody contacts me, it's okay. We got to stay on task. We got to stay within the scope of work and look at the big picture of what are we trying to achieve. And then once we can kind of narrow that down and kind of get through the giggly weeds of the full story, we can say, okay, this is what we need to confirm, whether through eyewitness accounts, photo or video. And then, we can kind of develop that plan procedurally, whether we're going to be going to a law enforcement agency for this, whether it's more of a CPS type complaint. But those first steps are crucial not to get it wrong.
You got to get it right. I mean, if you don't get it right, you're going to run into liability issues. I'm telling you. Which leads us into the next part, aiding welfare investigations. And then we jump right into, and we talked about this kind of a little bit, with family law investigations. Now, these things, just knowing my own situation, my parents' situation, family law situations get complicated. All right? You want to take some of the complication away? You might want to have people working for you that, it's going to cost you a little bit of money. But I'm telling you, in the long run, you're better off. Okay, Earl, take it from there. I mean, family law investigations.
Yeah. So we try to, and I'll say this firsthand, if you're into a situation like that, more than likely our client base is backed by some sort of attorney's office. So that's where we will partner with the attorney's office, and we kind of have, law educated type people dealing with, the procedural aspect, and we're kind of speaking the same language, even though I don't understand, I would say 25% of what a lawyer says, in the courtroom, but when it comes time to focus on the task at hand, what we're trying to achieve and how to do that lawfully, that's where I come in. And that's one of the benefits too, because a lot of PI, well, I won't even say a lot because there's not even a lot of us out here in this area that will deal and kind of be the middleman with an attorney's office to get to the resolution of this. And that's one of the things that I pride myself on, is those working relationships, and it works out really well. But as far as that, the welfare investigations, to take it one-on-one from a client, we would only take it on if there is already an order saying what can and can't be done, because without it, you have no case. And that's where I tell people all the time, like, you need this first before I can help you. But that's where the brutally honest part of me comes in. And I believe that people should know that.
All right, here comes a tough one. And we were going to get to it because this is big. There's a lot of indiscrepancies going on out there for whatever reason. Not disparaging anybody out there, but infidelity investigations. This is a very, very common issue out there, male and female, female and male. Not pointing fingers at anybody, just saying that we've got the private investigator here, and that's what they do. They check into this. What would be the situation with an infidelity investigation? How would you approach that, Earl?
So Michigan's unique in that regard. So this isn't my disclaimer, this isn't, legal advice by any means. But when it comes to infidelity, things like that, if you're looking to confirm it to maybe go forward with maybe pursuing a divorce or a separation, we're happy to help. But if you've already started the process of a divorce and now you're kind of backtracking to see if husband, wife was cheating or anything like that, you've already crossed that bridge. That information doesn't do anything to benefit you as a person or your case because of the way Michigan is set up. Now, I'm happy to help and confirm that, but I'm also very upfront and say, hey, you don't need this information for your divorce because it's not going to weigh one way or another in the outcome. You file for divorce, Michigan's no fault like that. And you go through and you get a divorce. You have to obviously decide, splitting property, retirements, things like that. But the infidelity itself is not going to weigh anything once you've filed for divorce. Now, you want to confirm it beforehand, we're happy to do that. But I at least like to be honest. It doesn't matter once you've already filed. The reason it doesn't need to be anyone's specific fault. Now, where it does differ is if there's some sort of an agreement that was made at marriage, where if one person steps out of the marriage, that the other person benefits, whether through financially or property, things like that. That's about the only time that it would come into place. And I haven't dealt with a whole lot of that aspect yet. I always seem to come in after the fact.
Okay, quick answer on insurance fraud, and then I got to get your takeaway. So is it prudent decision to hire a PI for insurance fraud?
That's a two answer. I will be very candid. Insurance fraud, I will say no. That's the knee-jerk reaction, just because these insurance companies have their own divisions of SIU, the special investigator units that handle the insurance fraud themselves. Now, the other part where I think it is if you enter into a civil agreement between somebody and turns out that there was some sort of fraud involved after the fact, that's where you can definitely step in, get the information needed to take it to law enforcement and ultimately to a prosecutor. But if you're dealing specifically with an insurance company, they have the pockets, they have whole divisions to handle that. So not really worth it.
Good answer. All right, takeaway. You got a couple minutes to go here. The private investigator, I know this was a high altitude. We'll definitely have you back to talk about specific things and other things that we can do. But again, on our high altitude, we like to just do the broad scope. What would you like to leave the listeners with your first visit? By the way, good job.
Thank you. So the biggest takeaway that I would want any of your listeners to have after hearing this is that a private investigator is here to help. We're not law enforcement. We may have the law enforcement background, but keep in mind, we may not always find what you're looking for. Just it's just one of those things where we can't force any specific thing or a violation to happen, but we'll document what we do see and take it to whatever agency if it requires it. But my specific services that I offer, I want people to realize, like, even if you're looking for information, this has been a big part of my life for the last, through college. And now, you're talking 20 years of my life I've been dedicated to law enforcement and the procedural aspect and understanding it. If it's just information you're looking for and a direction to go, we offer those services as well. And a lot of times that's the biggest hurdle for people is they don't know where to go. They've gone to law enforcement. They tell them, hey, this isn't a law enforcement matter. So you need to build the case prior to, and that's where we come in. So I would hope any of your listeners take that and say, you know what, I need to know what I don't know.
That's the way to go. We need to know what we don't know, and we need to hire Earl if you need to have some questions answered. Call this one the private investigator. Earl Christensen's been our guest today. If our show fits your business or group's mission, we want to be of service to you through our guests, topics, or issues. Got questions? Want to reach out to Earl? Call him 810-705-0734. ChristenServ, ChristenServ.com. Always remember, before you can share love with others, you must love yourself first. That's what we close the show with every episode. Thank you again to Earl Christensen for coming on, Sandy, Brock Fletcher, Mike Deadman. Talk to everybody next weekend. Have a great week, everybody. Go out and ignite your life. Remember, the Tom Matt Show is a production of Boomers Rock Media. We want to bring your story to life. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much to Mitch Anderson and Vanessa for keeping us up and going and doing all those things. We are out.
The Tom Matt Show is produced by Mitch Anderson of Black Circle Studios. Original music from the Source of Light and Power by the Arc of All.